Welcome back to Perspectives on Empathy. I'm your host, Taylor Brown, and we're back again to talk about empathy and leadership. Today's guest is Carol Capitani, the head coach of the UT women's swimming and diving team. Carol's teams have placed top 10 nationally in 7 of her 8 years coaching the team, capping it off with a 5th place finish in 2019. Carol, thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Well, we're just going to jump right into it. There's no beating around the bush.
Sorry, that's a little my personality.
Your team was a few weeks away from the national championships, and in the midst of all of that, I'm sure final preparations, it was brought to an abrupt end. I was just wondering if you could take me through the day that all occurred.
Well, we had finished our season at Big 12s, and that brought home a Big 12 championship, and we're preparing for NC2As. We had about 7 swimmers and 5 divers, and so we had a decent sized crew, and we were training that group plus another girl for Canadian Olympic trials. And first we heard that there were whispers that they were going to have NC2As, but then they were going to limit the people in the stands, and I think people were getting pretty fired up about that, and our team was. And then I think we got word, I can't really remember, but I remember we were in the middle of a set, and we did get word that that the ACC had pulled out of NC2As, but then we heard word that NC2As were canceled, and we had 4 seniors on the team and 2 who were going to the meet, and I think people were in shock a little bit, and that was probably the worst. I think those first few days were the worst days of it. But I think as time went on, I think it changes now that we all understand. I mean, I don't think we understand much about this, but I think what we understand is as time goes on, it wasn't just everybody could feel sorry for themselves, but the bigger in scope this got, the more people understood. Like, I think people are less feeling sorry about themselves and maybe have a bigger understanding of the world. Like, I remembered about a week later thinking about a quote, like I felt bad for the man who had no shoes until I saw the man who had no feet. You kind of think like, oh, I feel so bad I lost my season. And then we thought, oh, well, baseball and rowing, they lost their seasons and they had just started. And we at least got like 90% through our season, and then you feel like Olympic trials gets canceled. And then we think like, wow, there's people that have been training for 1, 2, 3, 4 years for Olympic trials, and Olympic trials gets canceled. And then, it gets bigger, and then people are dying. Like it makes just understanding how big it is, and really the effect that it's had on people on a bigger scale has maybe helped our athletes cope a little bit, but it's still pretty difficult because they're all 18 to 22 years old.
Sure. Speaking of the athletes, how'd that conversation go with the team? Kind of mid-set, you find out, what's going through your head.
I mean, mid-set, like I said, hey, I will let you know as soon as I know. I'm not going to mess around. And this, the second somebody called me, I was either my AD or one of them, and they called me and they let me know, or I might have just read it in the news. And I mean, I just stopped this mid-set and let them know, because I couldn't even finish practice thinking like, if I knew this information, it didn't even seem relevant to what we were doing anymore. Right. And people got out, our team is crying. When you realize like, wait, my season's over. It's just going to end with a whimper like this, like that's how this is how my entire career is going to end. I think like I just had to give some people some space and, love and space, and we're still working on that.
Right.
So
how do you think, what's been the role of empathy in this situation as you continue to lead from a distance, keeping the team connected, engaged? How do you use kind of seeing things through your athletes' eyes to lead them?
I think in the beginning it wasn't fun. I mean, in the beginning it wasn't fun, but there was a newness. There was a newness to Zooms and calling the team and getting them together. You know, I got a little, but honestly, after about 2 weeks of Zoom calls, it got really old. And if there wasn't anything to kind of check in on, like we do shout outs and share some stuff that happened in our week. But the hard part about it, it's not just like everybody's living these full lives and we have a lot to report. And so we haven't had any contact in the last week and a half on Zooms because of they're in final exams, and so we're not allowed to train them. We're not allowed to coach them in any sort of way, shape, or form. Like you can't run weights or dry lands with them. So really it's just talking. So I mean, I've found that we did a couple things where I sent out like a few pages of a book that I found pretty powerful, and then we talked about what it meant to everybody. We've shared like quotes and just everything from recipes. There's been a couple things that brought our team together, like putting together some videos for the athletic department. But most of all, I've really just been calling people one-on-one and having those conversations and trying to get a good idea of who wants to be. I mean, everybody wants attention. Everybody wants to have that connection, but some people I think crave it more than others right now, you know, and just trying to get a good handle on that. It's difficult. I don't want to just talk like on and on, but I think it's difficult. If you didn't have that connection on your team beforehand, it's going to be hard to start it now.
Sure. Yeah.
Maybe that's the most important thing I've learned is it's something like culture or connection. You can't, if you didn't have the leadership or that empathetic feeling, like if you didn't have the connection with your team beforehand, well, good luck now that we don't see every day. Right. Because I think that would be an almost impossible task. I think our team is really close. When I was able, you know, like I'll be able to talk with them tomorrow on a Zoom call, but they're taking care of each other. They're using their relationships to take care of each other. They're talking about things that matter. They're using mental health. They're like, there's a lot of things that they're doing to stay together and stay connected. And I think that's a powerful thing. And that's what strong teams do, you know?
Right. Thinking back over your years of coaching and your development as a coach, how have you developed that ability to create and cultivate that sense of strong connection on a team that you feel like this team really has? What does it take as a coach to do that?
I mean, thankfully, I do think I'm probably more on the empathetic side. I can. It's maybe more of a natural gift that I've had to hone because of this, you know, the profession that I chose. If I were like an accountant, I probably wouldn't need it, right? But like that sort of empathy, I feel a little bit of a natural inclination towards. But you definitely have to sharpen it, and it takes a lot of time, and it takes a lot of patience, and I don't think you can. It's like whether it's a good marriage or whether it's good you're working on relationships with your team or your spouse or your friends. I mean, it is time and energy, and sometimes you got to dig deep and have difficult conversations. I think that's maybe one thing that we do well, is just having difficult conversations, letting people you care about them, and whether that's by actions, words, your intentions. It just takes it. You can't ever like, oh, we're good now, and then just let it ride for a while, because that doesn't fly, you know. And the special thing about a team, like maybe just coaching a team in college, is, I mean, it's beautiful and sad, because kids come in and then you have these relationships that are like really intense and really strong. We spend like 20 plus hours a week with them for 4 or 5 years, and then they move on with their lives, and you're like, wait, I have this thing, this growing relationship with this person, and then they're off. And I think that's what's they're like in a really seminal part of their lives in college. And that, I mean, that's why I feel so fortunate to do what I do, but it also is pretty emotional, and it can be exhausting, you know?
Sure. Do you think over your career as a coach, you've developed more in terms of being able to empathize with your athletes? Like if this situation had happened earlier in maybe in the beginning of your coaching career, do you think you would have handled it any differently?
I don't know if I would have handled it differently, but I guess I'm looking at it now as like, I don't think it's not so much, I think it's empathy, but I also think this empathy and all, like maybe empathy and also resilience. Like maybe some of the people growing up now have a harder time with resilience. And so I'm looking at this period as a time to kind of to work on both, like just to get a broader view of the world, like and maybe as an opportunity to kind of slow down. Like this, I don't think you can have an empathy, like feel for others if you don't understand what you're made of yourself. And so using this time, like people are saying, oh, use this time to get better skills, and oh, you can learn to bake bread or speak Spanish or do whatever it is that you're doing. But it's like, I think at the end of the day, if we can come out of this just with a little bit more knowledge of ourselves and like how we're built and what makes us tick and what we're passionate about, like I'm encouraging that to my team, but just like that's going to help them in the future. Like, and also just understanding like everybody goes through things differently,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and having a patience for that and an understanding of like a kindness towards other people. I think the teams that come out of this stronger will be like not just teams, but the people will, like, you see all this, you see more giving, you have people taking care of each other, you have neighbors getting together. That's you can't empathize with somebody if you don't know them, right? Like you can't. And also going through things, I think when strong relationships are built on empathy, but strong relationships, part of being empathetic is understanding who you're working with and having those relationships. And you have to be willing to go through the difficult things and the hard things. And that's where the trust is built. There's no trust if you don't go through anything difficult with someone.
Sure.
Like,
yeah, I've heard that before.
And then you have to earn it, right? You have to mess up. You have to say, I'm sorry. There's going to be some hurt along the way. There's going to be something scary, and you get through it. Like you get through that part. And that's when you know each other on a different level, and the trust comes in, and then you can work. I don't know if I'm answering your question that well, but I think that's important. So maybe 10 years ago, I wouldn't have welcomed this like little break, but I think things like this, if you do it right, you'll come out on the other side better. Not better like, oh, I have all these new skills, but like stronger because you've been through something and you've learned something about yourself and you've learned something about the people around you.
In the spirit of that, Coach, what have you learned about yourself through this period of discovery?
I mean, probably one of the most important things. I love what I do. Like I love what I do so much, and I miss it. Like on the hard days, maybe before this, I'm like, man, I could do anything. This is exhausting and it takes a lot of time and it wipes me out. But like, because it's emotional, you know, and I think I miss those relationships. I think it's a privilege to be able to push someone, you know, like to be the best they can be. And I think it's a privilege to do what I do and have the relationships that I do, you know, like I hope my own children get to have these kind of relationships with an adult while they're still relatively young. And so I guess I realized like if it did anything, I'm coming back like more excited to do what I'm doing. And I feel that I'm a very grateful person anyway, but I'm even more grateful. And also just I realized spending time with my family, like like we're doing all right. Mm-hmm. So it makes me proud, like that all the energy and effort I put into like my passion, which is the work that I do, like my family, they're part of this journey and we're all doing it together and we're all like, we're in a good spot. and without stopping. Like, I think life gets so crazy and so fast moving sometimes you don't have that pause to kind of reflect on that, and that's kind of makes me feel pretty good.
What advice, this is the last question, what advice do you
Okay.
have for other leaders in the UT community, being a leader yourself in our community? What would you like to put out there into the world today?
uh, I mean, it's advice I received from somebody else, but it's probably I think just be yourself, be authentically and unapologetically yourself. I mean, the most you can. It's hard to do it. It's hard to do when you're 20. It's hard to do when you're 30, 40, 50, but like just and trust your gut, because if you can't lead from a good place if you're not just authentically being who you are. It takes too much energy to lead well if you're just thinking about how you're coming across or what you want to do, or you're trying to copy someone else. So, I mean, just having the guts to be yourself and lead from that place, that's a good place to be, you know. I'd rather mess up along the way and figure it out than try to be somebody else. And then just trusting your gut. I think that's if I keep messing up, it's just not going with how I really feel, because I think that's experience and that's intelligence, and that's kind of like mushing all that together in a ball, you know, and running with it. So,
Coach,
yeah.
thank you so much. This has been really
You're
great.
welcome.
I feel like there was some really good wisdom in here. And I guess there's only one thing left to do. Hook 'em.
Hook 'em.